Hey Stitch Cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and welcome to the tutorial for your free welcome kit when you join the Loads of Fun block of the month. Now this is the tutorial for those of you who are using your embroidery machine throughout the quilt. So let's talk about what comes in your little welcome kit and what we need to do to get started. You have two embroidery files that go with this welcome kit. One is going to be to make these flying geese in the hoop of our machine, and then the second file is going to be to stitch our applique. So first up, when you open your cute little kit, you have your fabric prep. You're gonna lightly starch and press all of your fabrics. Let's review what the fabrics are and the cutting instructions. So first up, you have your denim stars. This is going to be your applique background and your backing fabric. So just follow your cutting instructions and cut that. Then you have your denim plaid binding fabric. This is super cute. This is your binding. They call it a denim plaid. It's kind of a plaid, right? And it's adorable. This is a Lori Holt fabric, just like most of the fabrics are in this quilt. So you're going to trim that down to 2.5 inches by width of fabric, or if you want, you can go to 2 1/4. That's up to you. Now your Daisy Hayride plaid, that is the center of your flying geese. So you can see the inside of each flying geese is this super cute. It's a daisy gold color, and the plaid itself is called Hayride. So you're going to cut that. And then you have 6 assorted prints. Those are the outside of your flying geese. So see, there's 6 different colors. You will trim that down as instructed. And then optional for when you're finishing off your project would be a little bit of lightweight interfacing, and we give you the instructions for what you would want to cut there. Now the next thing you're gonna do prep-wise that I like to do is label my applique pieces. We're gonna go on and do that, even though we're gonna do file 1 for our flying geese first. I like to get all my pieces prepped. So you would simply take a pen, and what you do, or a Pigma pen or a thin Sharpie. And what I like to do is you have all your pieces reversed right here. I like to simply lay my applique piece down with the backing side up, and you can write the number of the piece on the back of your project. And then once you lay out all of your pieces, I like to look ahead in the pattern, and I take a look at the order that I'm gonna put everything in place. So for example, the first thing I'm gonna put down are pieces 1, 2, and 3. So this would be number 1, this would be number 2, and then number 3 would be my tire. So once they're all numbered, I like to put them in numerical order, and I make a cute little pile off to the side. So organize all of your applique pieces, and in the meantime, once you're done with that, we'll regroup with the file loaded for our very first file, which is the Loads of Fun Pincushion Flying Geese file, and we're gonna get started. Yay! Okay, so the first thing that stitches with your file 1 for your flying geese little border on your pincushion is an outer rectangle that's gonna be your trim line. It's also gonna help guide you as you're putting your pieces in. And you have 1 triangle at the bottom. This is super easy, y'all. You're just gonna take one of your cute little 2-inch Daisy Hayride squares, plop it down. You wanna make sure that it's extended past your rectangle at the bottom and that it's extended past your triangle. You have way more than you need. You're just gonna put that in place, and then your machine is gonna give us 1 guideline. Okay, so take a look. You have 1 diagonal line, right? You are going to first put down this cute little turquoise plaid, assorted fabric, face down, so right sides together, and look how much more you have than you need. You're gonna put where just it barely goes past the top of the stitched line, but it's gonna go a lot past the bottom of the stitched line, and you're just lining it right up with this guideline. Now the next line is gonna stitch diagonally 1/4 inch in and give you your first seam. Okay, so one thing I didn't do, I didn't trim after that first guideline stitched, but you can still trim now. That very first line that's stitched, we're just trimming right along it so that we have a perfect little line right here. So now we're gonna flip this open. So this is step 7 that's flipping it open. I'm gonna give it a press. If you wanna tape this in place, you can. I did fine without taping it. So now what's gonna stitch next is another angled guideline, okay? Okay, so now the machine on step 10 gave us another angled guideline. We're gonna do the same thing with the same fabric like we just did. We're gonna put it just a hair past the top, but a bunch past the bottom. But before we do that, y'all, why am I not wanting to trim? You gotta read your pattern. You're gonna trim like it says, just like so. Then you will put your fabric in place. I apologize. I'm gonna remember to trim. You're reading your pattern too, so you're trimming, you're doing the right thing. So now with this in place, the machine is gonna give us our 1/4 inch seam line right here. Okay, so now that's got a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We are gonna fold this over like so. And look at that, we've got the start of our flying geese. So give this a little press. Now what's gonna stitch next is one straight line across the top that's gonna be a guideline and a trim line. Okay, so now that that is stitched, we're gonna trim. Now all this fabric that's like out here past the stitch line, look how much extra fabric we give you, but we didn't want you to not have enough. You have way more than you need. We're gonna do a little trim coming up to that line, and then we're just gonna trim. We're trimming the top, and then make sure you get that little flap, and then just come straight out. There we go. So now you're gonna take another of your center squares, your little daisy hayride, and you are gonna put it right at that line, and then notice it's extending past the left and right of that stitched rectangle. See, that's guiding us because this is ultimately our trim line. So now our machine is gonna give us our 1/4 inch seam right here. Alrighty, we've got our seam. We're gonna flip this little guy up, and we're gonna give it a press. And again, if you wanna be using tape, you certainly can. I've been doing fine without the tape. So now what's next gonna stitch is another guideline on the diagonal for us. Okay, so that is stitched. We're gonna do some trimming. So you're just gonna take your scissors and you're gonna trim this little hay piece. And then if you gather a little bit of that, this fabric over here, that's fine. Don't worry about it coming off onto the side. It just needs to go past this line, right? All this is scrap, so you don't have to worry if you cut it nicely or not. So now we are going to put our next color, and remember, see where that stitch line is? We're gonna go just a hair past it. There we go. So it's gonna extend well past our little line over here on the left and a little bit past that stitched line on the top, and then we'll have our 1/4 inch seam allowance stitched. Okay, so we're just building this as we go, and we're gonna give this a press. And now you know the drill by now. The machine is gonna give us our diagonal line on the right. Okay, so we have that stitched diagonal line. We're gonna take our scissors and we're gonna come right up to this and trim. If you wanna trim some of this off like I did on this side, it's fine, but this is all gonna get trimmed at the end, so just let it lay there if you want. So now that that is trimmed along the line, we're gonna take our second piece of red, and you can put your 6 assorted colors in any way that you want. I'm just going, I think, with how it's done on the cover. Yes, with how Julie did it in the sample. So now with our piece of fabric in place, the machine is going to do our seam allowance for us. Okay, so now we flip this over now that it's stitched. Give it a press. Pressing really is what makes this look so good. If you don't press, it's just not gonna look as good. Now when we put this on, the machine is gonna give us our guideline. All right, so we have our trim line. We're just gonna come right up to it. There you go. Little trimming. Oh, and did I mention these are applique scissors? See how they have this little lip right here? It really helps because you can come right up to your line and it guides right over it. Very handy. And look, I have just a little bit of a point right there. There you go. Give that a trim. Now we're going to take our third piece of daisy hayride and plop it right down at that line, extending past the left and right of that stitched rectangle, and let's make a seam. Okay, so now just flip your little hayride piece up, give it a press, and now a diagonal line will stitch here on the left. Okay, so we have the stitch line and we are gonna trim right up to it. If you wanna trim some of the excess red, that's fine. If not, leave it. Now our next color, and again, you can put your colors in any order. I'm gonna use the cute little orange flowers and just extend past the top a little bit, but mostly extend past the bottom of that stitched line. And let's keep sewing. All right, so the seam is sewn. Let's fold it over. There we go. And continue on for the next step. Now we have a line that we can trim to. So just simply trim right up. There you go. And now we will place our second piece of the little orange flower fabric right up here. There we go. And after that seam is stitched, you will open this up And see how perfect your little points are coming out? I know, it's good. Now, put this back on for a straight line to be stitched. With this straight line, we will cut across and trim. And so we just come right up to that line. There we go. And give it a trim. There we go. And now take your next assorted color. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Don't take an assorted color. Take a piece of your hayride and you're gonna put this right sides together right at the stitch line so it extends past the left and right of your original rectangle. Okay, so now we're just gonna flip this little piece of hayride up. We're officially halfway through already with making our little flying geese. So now put this back on and your diagonal line will stitch. Now that we have a stitched line, we will trim right up to it. There we go. In our next assorted fabric, now you can put it in place. Go past your top line, extend past your bottom, and the next seam will stitch for you. So now we will fold this cute little print up and give it a press. And now our machine will give us our next line. Now we have a trim line here on the right. So just simply give a little trim. There you go. And now we'll line up this piece just past the top and extending past the bottom. Now we will fold this over, give a press, perfect point, and now our machine will stitch a straight line. Now we will trim across this line that just stitched. There we go, go right up to it. There we go. Oh, look, I missed one little piece. There we go. And now we're going to put hayride right in place for our next seam. Now we will flip this up, give it a press, and the machine will stitch our next guideline on the left. Now we have our line to trim, so come right up to it. There we go. And our next fun color I'm gonna put in place is this green, super cute. So go past the top just a smidge, but mainly go past the bottom for your next seam. Now we will flip this over. There we go. Give a press and return your hoop to the arm of your machine for the next guideline. Now we have a trim line. So give a trim. There we go. And now we will place our second piece of the green, just a little past the top, but mostly past the bottom for our next seam. Now we will press this over to the side, put this back on after that for the final straight line. And now we have a trim line. So we're gonna trim this green right up to it. There we go. And if you have some of the other colors sticking through, that's totally fine. Just give it a trim too. Boop. There we go. So now you're going to put your final piece of hayride right in place for the final seam right here across the straight line. Now you'll simply flip this piece up and you'll notice it's going to be well past the edges and the top. That's a good thing. That's what you want. And now put this back on for our left guideline. Now we will do our final trim on the left. So just come right up to the diagonal line. There we go. And we're gonna put the final piece of assorted fabric. You just wanna make sure it's past this top right here of our trim line. And then of course, past the edge like you've been doing the whole time. And now you'll flip this piece up like so. There we go. And return your hoop for the final guideline on the right. Now you have your final trim line here on the right. There we go. Trim right up and put your final piece. Again, you just want to make sure it's going past the top stitch and then of course extending well past it on the right. Okay, and now we will fold over our final piece and give a press. Now our machine is going to stitch that rectangle again. So you want to make sure that everything is ironed nice and flat because you don't want your foot of your machine to catch anything. So just make sure everything is nice and flat. If you want to put some tape, feel free. But as long as you've been pressing along the way, you should be just fine for our trim line to stitch. Alrighty, you built 6 flying geese in the hoop of your embroidery machine. Easy peasy, right? So now we are going to remove it from our hoop and we're gonna trim on the trim line. You can use the front trim line or you can flip over to the back if you want to be able to see nicely. And it is 1.5 inches wide and 6.5 inches tall. So I'm just gonna take a look and it is perfect. I love it. Again, you can trim from the front or the back. Now I'm just gonna flip over and do the left for my 1.5. Perfect. And give a trim. Now, oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm kind of doing it from the back because it's like then a really big reveal. Oh, I have my ruler upside down. I was like, it looks funny. So now just make sure it's perfectly lined up on the top and bottom. And we have it lined up here to there. Beautiful. So give a trim. And then we'll rotate for the final trim right over here to the 6.5. And it's perfect on all 3 sides. Oh my gosh. This is gonna be so beautiful when I flip it over. Ta-da! You guys, the most perfect flying geese you ever did make. So cute. So now it's time to do some applique. So we are gonna load our hoop again and now you're gonna load file 2 with your Sulky Tear Easy stabilizer and then you're gonna wanna have your background fabric pressed and ready to go. This is your applique background piece. Okay, so now we're making the front applique, right? So we have the first line stitched, which is a rectangle right in the center, and you're simply gonna plop your cute star background right in place. You can see you have tons overlapping all 4 sides, more than you need. If you wanna tape it into place, you certainly can. I usually do with my little applique background fabric. Funny, I don't do it with flying geese or like piecing in the hoop, but I always do when I'm doing my little outline here for the applique. So the machine now is gonna stitch the outer trim line ultimately for us, and it's gonna give us our first 3 applique outlines. Okay, so we have our first applique outlines, and the first thing I'm gonna do is take my tape off, so I don't wanna accidentally iron it and get a sticky iron. So we have pieces 1, 2, and 3 to put in place. And with all of our pre-fused laser cut applique pieces, they are perfect fits for your embroidery file because, well, I digitized both of them from Julie's original art. So the same file that I use when I'm making my embroidery files is the same files I'm making files for the laser department. So you're always gonna have absolutely perfect pieces. So great, I love it. So iron this piece right in. And now our cute little tire will be ironed on next. There we go. So we're gonna keep the white thread, and our machine now is gonna give us the applique outline of our little bumper and the inside of our license plate, and then we're gonna start building our leaves and flowers. Okay, so now we have several applique outlines, and we're just gonna go in numerical order as always. So we're going to put our little bumper in place. This is a super cute fabric. It's called Shabby, I believe. Well, I think so. Yeah, Shabby, and this is gray. And then you'll notice you have 2 white pieces. And throughout this block of the month, anytime we use a color that's white or maybe super, super light, we're gonna give you 2 of them so you can double line it. This little license plate is a perfect fit right here between the 2. So give that one piece a press, and then the second white piece will go directly over it. And that just helps make it really pop as a white and not have any of the background fabric showing through. Now it's really important here that you look at the number guide that came with your kit. You're gonna put leaf number 9, then leaf number 10, then flower number 11, because there's over and underlap, and you wanna make sure that you put them in the right order. Otherwise, of course, the stitches that I have programmed for you won't be in the right order. Now we're gonna put leaf number 10. Boop. There we go, right in place. And now, flower number 11. Line it up right there. And you wanna look at your wiggles of your flower and make sure they're in the right spot. Give it a press. And now you have the flower to the left, number 13. It looks funny, but that's because this is gonna be part of the seam allowance. So that's why it's a really funny looking piece until you see it in part of the broader design when it's finished. There we go. So now keep your white thread on and we'll do another round of applique outlines on our machine. Okay, so we have another round of applique outlines and we're just gonna go in numerical order. We have two cute little hearts. They are exactly the same. So we're just gonna line both up and then I'll give them a little press. Look how cute they are. They match my nails. I'm Riley Red. There we go. Now we're gonna put the little lining or the outer plate of our license plate. There we go. And just make sure that's lined up how you like it. There we go. Give it a press. Now we have two flower centers. And these are easy to line up because you'll see there's like the outer edge fits perfectly with the flower. See how this one has like a little nook? It fits perfect with the bend in your flower. So you'll know it's right. There we go. And now we have the center flower to line up, just like so. There we go. And you're just gonna check the bottom and top little petals or wiggles and make sure it's in place. Now we just have one more applique outline to go. And now our final piece is our flower center. Now it is not a perfect circle, so use your applique placement guide that came in your pattern and spin that around until it's the perfect fit, and then you'll know, just carry it right over here and give it a press. So now for the remaining steps of this embroidery file, I'm going to take my hoop on and off the arm of the machine so we can talk about the thread color changes. But for you, you won't need to take your hoop off again until you're all done. So the first color we're gonna load is 1039 True Red, and your machine is going to stitch the truck and your two hearts. Let's take a look. How good does that stitching look? Oh my goodness, I love it. Now we're going to load 1005 Black, and the machine is going to stitch our tire and around our little license plate. Take a look at your beautiful stitches, so good. Now we're going to load 1218 so your bumper can get stitched. Take a look at your little bumper, looks so good. Now we are going to load 1177 onto our machine, and our two leaves and the accent lines within the leaves will stitch. Alrighty, your leaves are stitched, they look great. Now we're going to load Butterfly Gold onto the machine, and your three flowers are gonna be stitched. And what's fun about these, they are stitched with a straight stitch, actually a triple stitch inside, because we're making the embroidery file match exactly how Julie stitched it, so it'll look just like the cover of your pattern. Alrighty, look how cute those flowers are. Oh my goodness, I love them. So our final thread color is 1130 Dark Brown, and the three flower centers will be buttonhole stitched. Okay, take a look at how cute this is. Let's look close from top to bottom. I love it. Your little truck looks so good, doesn't it? So now you're ready to take this out of the hoop. And remember that rectangle that we stitched at the beginning? You can see it from the back. Look how nice and clean. Or you can also use the stitched line across the front, and you were gonna trim this to the size according to your pattern. I believe it's 4 inches by 6.5 inches. Then you're gonna pair that with this perfect little flying geese. You'll put them just like so, do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, flip it up, and you're going to want to do a scant 1/4 ounce seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance, so mouthful at the moment. And when you flip it over, you'll have perfect seams. If you want a little tutorial about seam allowances, we have one under our Stitch Tips playlist where Julie shows you tricks for getting a perfect 1/4 inch, because you need to take into account that the fabric's gonna open up, so you lose a hair or two of that fabric in that fold open. you do want to remove your stabilizer. Now this is a pin cushion, so if you leave the stabilizer, it's not gonna be that big of a deal, but when we get to our actual block of the month, you're gonna wanna make sure that you take your stabilizer out because you don't want that in your quilt. But I hope that you enjoyed your free little welcome gift. This was a great practice for you to get used to our embroidery files and how they work with the pre-fused laser cut applique pieces, and then the general idea of how we're gonna create our flying geese every month. You're gonna make several flying geese throughout the year. So I hope you had a lot of fun. Thank you so much for joining. Let me show you the front of the pattern again. For joining the Loads of Fun block of the month. And this was your tutorial for your free welcome gift pincushion. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Go to stitchesoflovequilting.com and click on support. We have an amazing team who is there to answer your questions. And if they don't know the answer, they come straight to us and we, I think, hopefully will know the answer. Thank you so much as always, and happy stitching.